first flicker of life on this planet, about 4.5 billion years ago, took place in water. Since then, countless species have emerged and vanished. The few that could avoid distinction were the most adaptable, those that could evolve sophisticated behavior patterns in response to their changing environment. They alone could cling on for any length of time. They survived, as it were, by their wits. Where survival is concerned, the record holder must be a creature that looks like something out of science fiction. In actual fact, it's the oldest animal species on Earth. The primeval crustaceans known as tadpole shrimps, or triops, have existed unchanged for about 220 million years. They made their debut at around the same time as the dinosaurs. But while the giant reptiles were destined to die out and become fossils 65 million years ago, triops live on to this day. They can grow to 9 centimeters long, living in freshwater pools, hunting all kinds of small creatures. Their worst natural enemy has always been the heat of the sun. Evaporation can cause the pools to shrink rapidly, making their little world smaller and smaller. When the water starts to lose oxygen, these living fossils are soon in the throes of a terminal struggle. But this is all part of their survival strategy. They've been eluding sudden death for many millions of years now. When the female senses that her end is near, she releases hundreds of eggs without ever having mated. Triops has evolved the ability to reproduce without a partner. The female may have succumbed, but her offspring are assured of life. The eggs can survive for decades and even centuries in a death-like state of suspended animation. The next substantial rainfall will wake the primeval crabs from their long sleep. As soon as the desiccated eggs come into contact with fresh rainwater, they stir like Sleeping Beauty. A new generation of triops hatches within 48 hours. At first, they're no more than 0.5 millimeter long, but in a matter of weeks they grow to full size and lay their own eggs. These are immune to even the hardest of winters. Clutches of triops eggs can withstand temperatures as low as -200 degrees. Strange as it may seem, frost and snow play a key role in the survival of many animals. They can hide themselves in the white wilderness. The Arctic hare is a supreme example of a mammal that turns white in winter. For the rest of the year, its fur is brown. This winter whitening technique is in fact such a successful strategy that animals that live in the Arctic don't change colour at all. Because their habitat is covered in snow all year, even in summer they stay white and virtually invisible. Evolution has given the partridge an effective camouflage, except in winter. The plumage that hides it so well in summer turns out to be something of an eye-catcher when there's snow on the ground. What is definitely a problem for the partridge is a bonus for the hawk. It can spot the dark dots on the white landscape from several kilometers away. The hawk's claws are as sharp as needles, and its eyesight is many times sharper than that of the partridge. The hawk attacks its prey without mercy. At first sight, it might seem that the partridge's plumage is its downfall. On the other hand, the hawk has to eat, and the partridge population will be replenished with coveys of young birds in the spring. Brown colouring isn't always a hazard in winter. Some butterfly pupae, like those of the purple emperor or the map butterfly, disguise themselves as shriveled leaves. The blue tit is a bird which has literally seen through the butterfly's trick for surviving the winter. Nature has taught it to take an extremely close look at things. The blue tit carefully scrutinizes all the twigs and branches in its territory. This explains why it is so successful. Not all butterflies and moths spend the cold months as pupae. Some are out and about all winter, like the winter moth. The strange thing about these creatures is that the females, which grow to 1.5 centimeters long, don't have wings. The female emits scents known as pheromones to attract the males, which do have wings. This ability to reproduce even in winter gives the winter moth an unrivaled advantage over other moths. Some butterflies, like the peacock butterfly, spend the winter in a state of torpor, usually in sheltered caves. Other species are less sensitive to the cold and snow. The autumn offspring of the familiar brimstone butterfly survive the winter without seeking shelter. They avoid dying of cold with the help of a natural antifreeze agent. A mixture of alcohol, protein and salts fills its bloodstream in autumn. This protects it from even the hardest winter. Ladybirds use the same trick to survive the cold. Once the snow melts, they come back to life, for all the world as if winter had never happened. Actually, you don't need sophisticated strategies to survive for millions of years. A case in point is the fire salamander. Its survival technique couldn't be simpler. It's poisonous. And it looks poisonous. Its yellow dots are a warning to deter potential enemies. That's why fire salamanders are never in a hurry to get out of the way of people or of other animals. They know their spots will keep them safe. Although these amphibians with their sulphur yellow colouring are true land animals, in spring the females slip into the clear water of forest streams to produce their young. Fire salamanders give birth to fully developed larvae, which can and must fend for themselves as soon as they're born. The females are extremely fertile. They produce anything up to 70 offspring in the shallow water. Unlike the adult salamanders, the young ones aren't yet poisonous, which is why they don't have yellow spots but a brown camouflage colouring to protect them from predators. The crystal clear water of woodland streams attracts not only fire salamanders in search of somewhere to give birth. Grass snakes also tend to live near water because they prey on amphibians. When a grass snake meets a fire salamander, the latter shows no signs of anxiety, although it's just the kind of animal the snake would normally feed on. The grass snake's tongue picks up the salamander's unmistakable scent, and the yellow warning spots confirm the message: this creature is not edible. The grass snake retires. The yellow-bellied toad uses the same colour signals to proclaim its inedibility. At the approach of a grass snake, the toad performs a highly improbable routine. It arches its back to display the yellow spots on its belly. This ploy works very well. The grass snake understands the warning, "Take care, I'm poisonous," and leaves the toad alone. Amphibians that aren't equipped with the yellow warning signs, like this alpine newt, are fair game for snakes. It doesn't seem to matter that the newt is mildly toxic. Only the most garish colours afford reliable protection against being eaten. Conditions may vary enormously from continent to continent, but everywhere nature pursues a single aim: to evolve the most effective survival strategy. In the tropical rainforests of Central and South America, much of the wildlife is confined to the treetops. Countless species of bromeliads, mosses and epiphytes cover the tree branches in a never-ending struggle to catch the sunlight. Tiny frogs swarm over this mass of vegetation. Their bright colours are as varied as those of the fish on a coral reef. Yet they share one important feature: they are incredibly poisonous, which explains their name, poison arrow frogs. Like the European amphibians to which they're related, they use their colours to convey a simple message that they are inedible and thus a hazard to predators. There are about 120 known species of poison arrow frogs, of which the smallest measure barely more than 2 centimetres. Knowing full well that they are much too toxic to eat, they don't bother to look for cover when they go hunting for small animals like springtails. The garish yellow Phyllobates terribilis, the most toxic of them all, is 20 times as poisonous as any other species of poison arrow frog. In relation to its size, which is 3 to 4 centimetres, it is the world's most poisonous animal. In its native Colombia, Phyllobates terribilis is not uncommon in some forest areas. Like the other poison arrow frogs, it preys on small animals like woodlice. The difference is, though, that it's a veritable poison factory. Just one of these frogs can secrete 1,900 milligrams of poison through its skin, enough to kill 20,000 mice or 1,500 people. These tiny toxic monsters also have a bizarre way of reproducing. The female lays her eggs on land, and the tadpoles develop inside the egg case. Only when the tadpoles hatch does the male have anything to do with the process. He loads them onto his back and carries them away. At this stage, small pools of water or even puddles are essential, but they can be found almost anywhere in a rainforest. When the male finds a suitable patch of water, he tips the young ones off his back and leaves them to fend for themselves. The tadpoles are often abandoned in the tiny pools of rainwater that collect among the leaves of bromeliad plants, known as tree pines because they look like pineapples. It is in these miniature pools that the tadpoles develop into fully grown frogs. Large tropical bird spiders frequently prey on vertebrates, including frogs and toads, but they very rarely dine on poison arrow frogs. Not even a spider can handle this amount of toxin. A fully developed Phyllobates terribilis is less than 1 centimetre long, and yet no other animal dares to harm it. It's a priceless asset. Whatever other creature is around, they're utterly fearless. The world's most poisonous frog doesn't need to be afraid. When night falls in the primeval forests of Madagascar, the hissing cockroaches emerge to feed on rotting fruit. These ancient insects are not poisonous, but they too have survived 300 million years by dint of a sophisticated trick. When danger nears, they ward it off acoustically by emitting hissing sounds in imitation of a snake or a big cat. This defense strategy is absolutely unique in the insect world. Another very strange creature roams the Madagascan forests at night. Camouflaged as a lump of rotting wood or tree bark, it's virtually indistinguishable from its surroundings. This is the nocturnal flat-tailed gecko, otherwise known as Uroplatus fimbriatus. Its huge eyes are typical of an animal that shuns daylight. Of course, flat-tailed geckos and hissing cockroaches are bound to meet on their nocturnal rambles, particularly because the flat-tailed gecko has a taste for insects. The cunningly camouflaged gecko, looking rather like a miniature crocodile, cautiously approaches the cockroach. The gecko seizes the insect in a flash, but it's in for a nasty surprise. Disconcerted by the hissing, the gecko quickly drops the cockroach. The acoustic trick works, and the cockroach lives to tell the tale. Guinea in Africa is the home of the two-spotted assassin bug. Although it's only about 3.5 centimeters long, it's developed a highly effective way of winning the daily struggle for survival. This bug is equipped with a stiletto-like beak which serves two purposes: taking up liquid, but also injecting poison into its victims before sucking out their body fluids. A young regal python is also out in search of prey. It's taken an interest in the fleet-footed two-spotted assassin bug. Although it doesn't normally feed on insects, the python comes closer. But you don't play games with an assassin bug. It takes up its fighting posture. The bug can squirt its poison accurately over a distance of up to 30 centimeters. Assassin bugs can turn very nasty. The python has no option but to retreat. That part of Africa where the savanna gradually gives way to damper vegetation is the habitat of one of the most expertly camouflaged and most dangerous of all animals. So perfectly does it blend in with the fallen leaves on the ground that you can barely make it out even close up. For hours at a time it lies almost motionless, moving only its eyes and its nostrils as it breathes. It's only when the Gaboon viper, which can reach a length of 180 centimeters, starts slithering that it becomes distinguishable from its surroundings. And then you realize how big it is. Mammals, like rats, live dangerously when there's a Gaboon viper around. It's one of the world's most cleverly disguised and most venomous snakes. Its hunting technique consists of striking with lightning speed and then dropping its prey. Its poison can kill within seconds, and its fine sense of smell leads it unerringly back to its victim. Its 5-centimeter long fangs are the longest of any poisonous snake. It uses them to help force its prey down its throat. Less spectacular creatures than the Gaboon viper have also realized the advantage of looking like dead leaves, like the leaf moth. There are many butterfly species in both the Old and the New World that survive by resembling withered leaves. None of their natural enemies takes much interest in dead foliage. It's only very seldom that the leaf moths break cover and open their wings, usually just before they take off. Few creatures have achieved such perfection in imitating their surroundings as the stick insect, known as the walking stick, which lives in Indochina. It resembles a thin twig right down to the finest details. It even has imitation cracks on its supposed bark and patches of moss and lichen. Even from very close up, it's difficult to detect which is the front and back of this insect. For all that, it's a harmless vegetarian. While some creatures imitate dead leaves or twigs, others manage to resemble the green foliage of shrubs or trees so perfectly that you can't see them even from only a few centimeters away. The leaf insects, known as walking leaves, have evolved an unrivaled mastery in the art of blending in with foliage. There are some 26 known species, most of them native to Sumatra, Java and Borneo. They may grow to over 8 centimeters long, but still the eye can't pick them out in the jumble of leaves. The way they mimic leaf surfaces is one remarkable thing about these insects. The other is that there's room for all their internal organs inside these paper-thin bodies. The walking leaves are such experts at disguise that they've even adapted the rhythm of their movements to life among the foliage of shrubs and trees. Several of them start climbing all at once as if the leaves were fluttering in the breeze. The insects don't have to learn these imitative skills, they're born with them, the outcome of millions of years of successful evolution in the service of survival. Their expeditions are usually brief and are designed mainly to get them to fresh food. They spend almost all of their lives virtually motionless, which gives them the perfect camouflage. But even the best camouflaged creatures can have their enemies. Sometimes they're found by pure chance, by birds for instance. Many tropical bird species eat a mixed diet of insects and also fruit. This soft food keeps their digestion in good shape. Everywhere the leaves are spattered with the evidence of the bird's feeding habits. There would be nothing special about bird droppings if they weren't the basis for one of the most curious survival strategies in nature, because not everything that looks like bird droppings is bird droppings. It's only when the droppings start to move that you realize that what you're looking at is actually a caterpillar. Several butterfly species in tropical and subtropical regions use this ingenious trick. After all, anybody who pretends to be a bird dropping isn't going to get eaten too often. The highland forests of Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda are the habitat of an animal which ranks as a classic example of masterly disguise, the chameleon known as Cameleo jacksonii. It's no secret that green is a good colour to be if you live in trees. What's less well known is that this chameleon has reasons other than camouflage for changing colour. Jackson's chameleon is notoriously unfriendly towards other chameleons and uses a range of techniques to show its feelings. The two rivals hiss at each other as their skin changes colour rapidly. They emphasize their agitation by jerking to and fro. If neither of the chameleons backs down, a showdown is inevitable. They're cumbersome animals, and this is their top fighting speed. Jackson's chameleons are inveterate fighters, and they won't give up until one of them retreats or literally drops out of the contest. Then comes an extraordinary moment. While the loser is still trying to catch his breath, the victor strikes a triumphant pose and starts showing off. In the end, the defeated chameleon signals his submission by going black with anger. Not that every dark-coloured chameleon you come across is necessarily in a bad mood. The European chameleon, for instance, is normally brown because it lives close to the ground, and this makes it hard to see against the dry undergrowth. The chameleon's branch-like colouring is convincing enough to catch a green bush cricket off its guard. Its other hunting trick is to move in jerks, like a dry leaf buffeted by the wind. The chameleon's sticky tongue darts out at a speed of up to 20 kilometers an hour to seize its prey. With their expert camouflage and their lightning-fast tongues, chameleons rank among the most deadly hunters in the animal world. For a long time it was believed that only reptiles could alter their skin colour. Even today, it's a little-known fact that the tree frog can also change colour like a chameleon by random rearrangement of its pigment cells. When it moves to another location, for example, if it decides to stay, it adjusts to its surroundings. In the long history of evolution, nature has invented the most remarkable survival strategies. You wouldn't think that losing your legs would keep you alive, but it stood the slow worm in good stead. It may look like a snake, but it's actually a lizard. Its movable eyelids are a typical lizard feature. Snakes can't close theirs. A legless lizard that crawls like a snake. That isn't all that's strange about the slow worm. Slow worms have numerous enemies, including ravens and magpies. Without legs, the slow worm can't make a quick getaway. It's a sitting target for an agile bird. At first, it doesn't look as though the slow worm has much of a chance. The magpie is stubborn, and the vicious blows from its beak can inflict life-threatening injuries on the reptile. And then, something completely unexpected happens. The slow worm gets away, leaving the tip of its tail behind. Bewildered by this, the magpie concentrates on the abandoned tail section. The twitching nerves make it move like a worm. the slow worm has escaped certain death by releasing the end of its tail in the nick of time. It's exhausted and the wound is bleeding, but time is the best healer. A year passes and the tail tip rapidly grows again. The ability to regenerate its tail means that if necessary, the slow worm can again escape from another enemy by leaving part of itself behind without suffering lasting damage. Summer meadows are a kaleidoscope of gorgeous colours. Among them, white and yellow often dominate. One curious eight-legged creature has become a specialist in these colours. Despite appearances, this animal is by no means yellow. When it switches to a white blossom, it shows its true colours. The yellow pigment is absorbed inside its body, revealing the white crystals that cover its skin. Nature goes to great lengths to protect a tiny spider only 7 millimeters long. The top class in camouflage, though, contains animals that don't just change their colour to match plants, but actually look like plants. And even imitating leaves and twigs is simple compared to looking like flowers and pistils, which is precisely what the pupa of Cuculia artemisiae does. The only time it can be distinguished from the plant it's feeding on is when it moves. An animal that looks like a plant, or a plant that resembles an animal. Here the borderline gets blurred. Some tropical species of rose beetle have evolved a completely different survival technique. Most of them are clad in garish warning colours or shiny metallic-looking armour. These beetles are especially fond of eating petals and pollen, so they converge on flowers that open and close. Although they make little or no attempt to conceal themselves, other animals tend to leave them alone. They survive by means of false pretenses. Most rose beetles are only slightly toxic, if at all, but they display warning colours to deter would-be attackers. In human terms, they deceive with a white lie. Experiments have shown that eye symbols also keep predators at bay. The flower mantis, a species of praying mantis, uses this ploy, but it also relies on the proven technique of camouflage, pretending to be part of a hibiscus blossom. Praying mantises are highly expert in the art of ambush and generally lie in wait without moving until a victim passes by. Once the fly has been spotted, it's in mortal danger. Flies have good eyesight themselves, but not nearly as good as that of a mantis. Very cautiously, the mantis maneuvers itself into its attacking position. Once the mantis has launched its attack, the fly doesn't stand a chance. It's eaten alive. Orchids are widely regarded as masterpieces of nature, and their colourful exuberance seems endless. It's barely conceivable that the animal world could have brought forth anything so opulent. And yet, evolution has produced creatures which can so perfectly mimic the complex shapes and colours of orchid blossoms that they're indistinguishable from them. This is the most highly specialised mantis of them all, the orchid mantis. Here the blossom, there the mantis. The sheer strangeness of this animal reveals once more to what extraordinary lengths nature has gone in evolving and conserving species through specialization, and that for a space of 4.5 billion years. However long the survival game goes on, one thing is certain: the winners will stay alive by dint of their wits.